Hello, and welcome to Confessions of an Antisocial, where we say out loud the things that most people only think. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not new here, then you already know what's up. I'm your host, Rozia Bell. So, for those of you guys who don't know, I did get arrested when I was 19 years old, and I did 5 years in prison. And the number one question that I get is, did I know they were going to rob the place? Because I did have three co defendants, and I will never answer that question. You guys will never get the satisfaction. So when I got arrested, I did not plan on going to prison. I don't think anybody wakes up and says, hey, today's the day I'm going to go to jail. So when I left the house that morning, my daughter wasn't even a year old. She was sick. She was crying. She was up all night. And I just walked out the door thinking I would be back in an hour and I would be able to take care of her. And I didn't see her again for 5 years. So, yeah, it sucked. And again, I'll go into that more on a different episode. But when I got arrested, it's interesting. So they don't read you. Well, they didn't read me my Miranda rights. They gave me a piece of paper that said the Miranda rights on there. And it was like, if you understand these rights, sign at the bottom. So I signed the paper at the bottom and they put me in handcuffs and they took me to the county jail. And if you've never been to the county jail, it sucks. Okay. I don't recommend. 0 out of 10. It was terrible. The county jail, I was in North Tower, and if you've never been to the county, there's two separate places. There's North Tower and there's South Tower. And North Tower is for the very violent criminals. And when I got arrested, I was arrested with 10 felonies. Just about 10. Probably maybe 8. So most of them were violent. So I was in North Tower with 23-hour lockdown. But I want to talk about the county jail in a little bit and the charges and the court date and how fucked the system is. Because from the time I got arrested to the time I was sentenced and sent to prison, it was like a 2-month span. I was confused. I didn't know what was going on. So, and I was 19 years old. I had never been arrested. So I get arrested. They book me in the county jail. They read me my charges. And out of the 10 charges, one of them was kidnapping in the first degree with a deadly weapon. And my lawyer told me it's a minimum of 25 years. And I'm like, who got kidnapped? Like me? Was I the one that kidnapped? Like, how am I getting charged for my own kidnapping? Like, I don't know. I never got out the car. So I didn't know what was happening. I was charged with robbery with a deadly weapon, burglary with a deadly weapon. So I had all these very violent charges. And so my public defender told me to plead guilty. And if I pled guilty, like robbery is probationable. So they offered me, let me back up. They offered me robbery and conspiracy to commit robbery. And they told me if I pled guilty, that it was probationable. If I don't plead guilty and I take it to trial, it's a minimum of 25 years if I'm convicted of kidnapping. Crazy. So it was a no-brainer to me at the time because I was ready to get out of the county jail. And I'll talk to you about why. I was ready to get out of the county jail. I had never been in trouble with the law, so being on probation for the rest of my life meant nothing to me because I don't live my life a criminal. So I pled guilty. They sentenced me, and they kept telling me I'd never been in trouble. They're going to give me probation. They're going to give me probation. Well, on my sentencing day, I had a different judge, and that judge, everyone said he sends everyone to prison, and he sent me to prison. I was sentenced to, for my conspiracy to commit robbery, I was sentenced to a 2 to 5. For my robbery charge, I was sentenced to a 3 to 10 to be ran consecutively. And if you don't know what consecutively means, it means I had to finish my first sentence. I had to finish my 2 to 5 before I can make it to my 3 to 10. So I was going to do the entire 5 years. And again, robbery is a violent crime. So there wasn't no getting out early for good time, which everyone told me that I was going to get out early for good time. I did not. I got sentenced to go to prison. So while I was in the county jail, again, only like 2.5 months passed. The food was terrible. Everyone's always asking how jail was. It was terrible. 0 out of 10 would not recommend. The North Tower, we had a 23-hour lockdown. If it wasn't 23, it was a 22-hour lockdown. So we would get out for free time 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the evening. And in those 30 minutes, we were supposed to use the phone, take a shower, have a good time. I don't even say it was an hour. I don't know. I don't care. It was an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon. But other than that, we were on lockdown for 22 hours a day. They had to offer us a shower every 72 hours, and I'm pretty sure they waited 71 hours for every shower, which is fine because the showers were gross. The food was gross. The food was like cat food. They served us a loaf of bread every single day, 2 slices of bread for every meal. And I remember my bread was so moldy and stale. And it was like I had 2 choices. I can eat the bread or I could not eat the bread. And that was like all I was going to get until lunch, where I would get more moldy, stale bread, and I could eat the bread or I could not eat the bread. And so I ate it because I wasn't going to starve. The same thing for the drinks. So I remember they give us a brown cup and they had a jug of juice. And I remember I went to get some juice. A roach came out of the jug and fell into my cup. And I told the guard, like, hey, there's a roach in my cup. And they're like, you can pour it out and get some more. And I was like, well, I mean, the roach was in the jug. There's probably like more roaches in here. But I poured it out and got some more. And I drank it because what am I going to do? Just not drink during my meals. So it was a lot of gross things that I did in the county jail that I probably should not be admitting. But we're confessing. So there you go. I drank roach juice. I was in the county jail, and I probably won't use real names because these people probably care about their privacy. So I'll say I met a girl named Kim. She was my roommate for most of the time I was in there. She was one of the coolest people I had met in there. So I got arrested the end of October. Then in December, I had turned 20. And she actually went down to the pod. She got a card made for me for my birthday. She had everyone in the pod sign the card. She had someone make me like some little cookies, and she got me some noodles. And that was my very first birthday I spent behind bars. And it was the best birthday I've ever had in my life. So shout out to Kim. Thank you so much. You know who you are. I appreciate it. County jail, gross. But again, I only spent about 2 months there, maybe 3. I got shipped off to prison. I was 20 at the time, and prison was like a whole new world for me. Prison was, they make it comfortable because they know people are going to be doing a lot of time in there. So they try to make sure you have a TV. They make sure you have, well, they don't make sure. They sell TVs. Like, you got to buy it. So if you don't have money, you don't have that luxury. And the food is so much better. So in the prison, they have peanut butter and jelly once a month. So on this day, they would have, for breakfast, they would have pancakes and peanut butter. For lunch, they would have peanut butter and jelly. And then for dinner, they would have like chicken sandwich. Like, it was like the best breakfast, lunch, and dinner day that they offered. And it was like the day I look forward to. So I had a lot of time in jail. Overall, I did 5 years. I did 60 months. So I got to have 60 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And I know it sounds very like a tiny reward, but I started counting the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because that was my favorite day. When I first got there, though, I counted the Christmases. I had 5 Christmases, and everyone always asked me, like, what was prison like? And since we are confessing what it's like to be an antisocial, I'll be honest, prison was fine for me because I was able to not have to interact with people if I didn't want to. It was cool. Like, the only thing, like, I was away from my child. I didn't see her until she was 3 years old. I think my mom was able to bring her when she was 3. I was put into unit 5, which doesn't matter to you guys, but it was mostly for people with longer time. We were allowed to go outside for the yard like 3 times a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, once at night. But our pod was open almost like 16 hours a day. They shut down for sleep, but from the time we woke up at like 6 a.m. until the time we were to lock down at like 9 p.m., we were just able to roam the pod. If you chose to roam the pod, you could. If you didn't want to, you can stay in your cell. And for a lot of time, I did stay in my cell because it was fine. I had books to read. You know, I had a job. I did have a job. I worked in the education department. I was one of the math teachers because I love math. I was young. I was literally right out of college because I was in college when I got arrested. So everything was still fresh for me. So very much so enjoyed my job in education. So I was in Unit 5 in MPod for a long time. And then I moved to the dog pod. And for those of you guys who, again, don't know, there is a dog pod in the prisons. I had a dog. Well, first of all, my bunkie was batshit crazy in there. Like the good thing was the dogs, because the dogs got to stay in the cell with you. You got to train the dogs. You just had more of a companion. The bad thing was I had a terrible bunkie there. Like, she was crazy, so bad, where I was like, don't fucking talk to me. If you have anything to say to me, like, write it on a piece of paper. Write it on a piece of paper and you put the note on my mattress. Like, just a very hostile environment in there, to the point where I just ended up leaving the dog pod because of it. In education, I was making $1 a day essentially. I was making $30 a month, and that was actually, I think I was making $50 a month. And that was after room and board, because yes, they do take out room and board. Even though you don't want to be in the prison, they're charging you for being in the prison. And that was one of the highest paid jobs other than Jacob's in there. And I eventually went to Jacob's. I never worked in the kitchen at the prison because I can't see what's going on with my food. Like, if I know my food fell on the floor and you still served it to me, like, I can't eat it. But if I don't know, oblivious is bliss. Like, I'll still eat it. I'll eat pretty much anything. So I worked in education for maybe a year and a half. I worked in education before I got my jobs in Jacob's. And that was a prison industry job where I was making, like, drum roll please, $800 a month. And that was good stinking money behind bars. Like, we were the elitist. Once I started making Jacob's money, I did not go to the culinary except for that one day a month when they served my peanut butter and jelly sandwich, because I don't think you could buy jelly. You could buy bread on commissary, but I don't think you could buy jelly. Maybe you could. Maybe I just loved their peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. What do you know? But I was at working Jacob's, making $800 a month. Yeah, once I started working Jacob's, prison went by super fast. My time went by fast. At that point, like, everything felt like it was going right. My hair was healthy. My nails were growing. Like, I had friends. I had a personality. Like, my daughter was able to come and see me, so I seen her for the first time. And then they ripped the rug right under me when they sent me to camp. So before I went to jail, I hardly had any friends, and I'll talk about that in another video. I hardly had any friends because I didn't have a personality. Like, if you asked me what my favorite color was, I would say, I don't know, what's your favorite color? Blue? I like blue. Blue's cute. And then it would be my favorite color until I talked to the next person. Oh, like, I wanted so desperately to have friends, and I joined all these basketball teams and volleyball teams just to be, like, a part of something. And I still, like, couldn't figure out how to connect with people. So when I went to jail and I was stripped of everything, and I literally had to have a personality or be alone for the rest of my life, I started forming a personality, and I realized that I am kind of funny. And really, it was April, and shout out to April, you know who you are. She was my bunkie, and she really taught me how to have a conversation with people, and how to ask questions, and how to be fun, and how to just be okay in my own skin. And so that was, like, one of the first people who kind of helped me get out of my shell. Deja, and rest in peace, Deja. I loved her. She taught me how to be tall, because I'm actually pretty tall. If you've never seen me in person, I'm 6 feet tall. You can't tell with me sitting down, but I'm 6 feet tall. And I always would shrink myself to make other people feel comfortable, because again, I was always chasing a connection and wanting other people to be comfortable. So I would do things to make myself seem shorter, even though they never worked. And so when I seen her, I was in prison. I was looking at my window. She was on the yard double dutching, and she just looked like a long spaghetti noodle. Like, it was crazy, but she embraced it, and she was gorgeous. Deja, you were gorgeous. And she was tall, and we became friends, and she taught me, like, embrace your height, girl. Like, that height ain't going nowhere. You gotta either love it or you're gonna hate yourself for the rest of your fucking life. And I just learned. I watched what she did. I watched how she carried herself and how she conducted herself, and I was like, that's the type of confidence I want to have. And so just by being her friend, I was able to be a better version of myself. I did not get in any fights while I was there, because I'm not a fighter. I don't care to fight. I believe in talking things out. I believe in communication, and that did not change just because I was behind bars. But I did get a girlfriend. And, like, my first girlfriend, she hated me. She just really wanted my commissary. So you know who you are. My second girlfriend, she also hated me. I don't know how I keep getting girlfriends that hated me, but she also hated me, and I was just like always so happy to see her. She's cool now. Like, girl, you know who you are. You're fine now, but you hated me. And like, and you were so mean to me, and that's crazy because all I did was I was nice to you, and I just wanted to like be friends and girlfriends and do gay stuff, and you were like, no, but you wanted me as your girlfriend anyway. Started going to Celebrate Recovery while I was there, and although I didn't have addiction to substance, I did have an addiction to other things like sex. And that's again another topic for another time. So when I was going to Celebrate Recovery, I started going because of my BFF. So I'm gonna just call all my biffs from now on. I started going because of my best friend, and I didn't necessarily have an addiction to substance, like I said, but I was addicted to relationships and sex and like affection, I guess. Like I was craving affection and from anybody, and I'll talk about that in another video. And if you read my book, you'll know I wrote a character who was just craving somebody. And I wrote that because that's how I used to be. I used to just like crave the presence of people and not knowing how to connect with them. So I started going to Celebrate Recovery, and it just opened the door to the things I was allowing myself to, like things that I was allowing to happen to myself. For example, they were like, one of the questions they asked, and this is what really stuck with me, was, what have you done for your addiction? And, you know, a lot of them were addicted to meth or alcohol. And I was looking at them like, I don't have addictions like that, girl. Like, I ain't do nothing for my addiction. And I would hear them talk, and they were like, you know, I did some questionable stuff. I stole from my mom to get money for the drugs. Or, you know, they just did all of these down low things. And then when they got to me, I was like, I haven't done shit. But then I started thinking about it. And the reason I left my daughter the day I got arrested is because our plan was to pick up these guys and have sex with them. And that was, I had a one-track mind when I was a teenager, and it was like sex. And it was like connection. And hopefully like the next person I had sex with would like me enough to want to be friends with me. And when I left, I didn't think I would have seen my daughter again. And that was like part of my addiction. So like I realized that for my addiction, me to jail. Like I left my daughter who was sick and needed me just so I can have some penis for like 6 minutes, and I never seen her again. Well, I seen her again, but you know what I mean? Like, yes, my addiction was bad. Celebrate Recovery really just changed my life because it just shed light onto the things that I was okay with when I was younger. So again, I was sentenced to 5 years in prison. And I negotiated with God, like, hey, God, if you get me out early, I promise. Oh, yeah, I was married. All of this happened while I was married to somebody. So I did cheat a lot. And I'm sorry to my ex-husband. But I was like, if you get me out of this, I promise I won't cheat. Like, I promise I'll be a faithful wife and a good mother to my child. And a year in, I was not that. Like a year into my sentence, I was still like, I can't wait to get out, and I'm gonna have sex with so many people. It's gonna be so cool. I'm gonna tell them I was in prison, and they're all gonna want me to sit on their face. It did not happen like that. Nobody thought it was cool. They actually all felt sorry for me. Spoiler alert. A year into my sentence, I wasn't ready to get out of prison. 2 years into my sentence, I was not ready to get out of prison. 3 years into my sentence is where I finally started to work on myself, and that's when I went to Celebrate Recovery. Because before that, I didn't realize I had a problem. I didn't know I had a problem. I thought what I was doing and what I was experiencing was normal, and it wasn't. It wasn't until I started going to therapy and talking and expressing and exposing the things that I was going through where people was like, girl, seek help. This isn't, you shouldn't have experienced that. And I was like, maybe I am not okay. So thank you to Celebrate Recovery. It changed my life. And at that peak, at my 3-year mark, is where I started to work on myself, where I started to realize that how I had been living was not right. And really, prison saved my life. And as much as I'm not glorifying prison. I'm not. But for me personally, I needed it. I needed to go to prison to open my eyes for what my life was becoming. Because although I was in college, I really wasn't I didn't have a goal. Like I was like, I want to be a teacher. But I didn't know what type of teacher I wanted to be. I didn't know what classes to take, nor did I care to do the research to figure it out. So I was just taking like the basic classes that you need to like move on. But I didn't have a goal. I was working this job where I was making $7 an hour before prison, $7 an hour. Like and I thought that was fine. If I was on welfare, I was getting child support, and I was married. Like I think I was getting child support while being married, having sex with all these people. Oh, let's back up and talk about my parole. So my first sentence, again, I told you I was doing a 2 to 10. After my first 2 years, or 2 to 5, sorry. After my first 2 years, I had parole to see if they were going to let me roll over to my next case, which is my robbery case for the 3 to 10. You still have to go to parole because they may not let you roll over if you've been a terrible inmate. But again, I was a great inmate because I was antisocial. I did not get in trouble because if y'all was doing something crazy, I was not going to be a part of it. So when I went to parole for my first case, I remember it was a panel of like 5 people. It was 4 white men and 1 black guy. And I was kind of looking more at the black guy because hopefully he would give me sympathy. And I was talking to him and he was like, "How old are you?" And I remember I was like, I'm 21. Hey, just turned 21 because like my 21st birthday was the day before. So I was a little excited. And he humbled me very fast. And he says, "Is this where you expected to turn 21 in prison next to all these fucking criminals? And you're happy about it?" He was like, "Is this what you wanted for your life?" He was like, "You need to do better. You need to do better. I'm very disappointed in you." And I was just like, well, sorry. Thank you for your time. Because to me, I wasn't necessarily happy I was there. I was happy that I was finally 21 because that's when, that's the pivotal moment to be an adult. That's when you can finally drink, you can gamble, you can you can say, I don't know, you're 21. I don't know what people do at 21 because again, I was locked up. But when he said that, he was like, "Is this where you thought you would be at 21? Like, no, I did not. I did not think I would be in prison, but I'm here and I'm not going to be sad about it." But I was sad about it afterward. After I was like, damn, I don't think he's going to let me roll over because he thinks I'm just having such a grand time in prison. They might as well keep me here. So let me roll over to my next case. Let me start my 3 to 10. So I went to camp and I was reunited with my Biff, and she's honestly like, I didn't hug people. Let me tell you about my best friend. I did not hug people because I didn't grow up with a family that hugged or showed affection, and I didn't necessarily have friends. We hugged. I didn't have friends, and I mean I did. Don't get me wrong. There are people I hung out with. There are people that. There's one girl who I always say like, "Why you say we're not friends? Well, we did everything together." But then when we started talking, I realized like she was living a life that I knew nothing about, and I was living a life that she knew nothing about. And how can we say we're friends if we know nothing about each other, right? So it was very surface level friendship. And not discrediting her, like I love her to death, and you know who I'm talking about. But I never really had that type of friendship where you were happy to see each other, where you hugged each other, where you were just like very intimate and deep with each other until I met my best friend. And I remember her father passed away and she came, I'm going to cry. She came and like she's crying, and I was like, "Girl, what do you need right now?" Like I've never dealt with someone showing emotions like this. I don't know what to do. Like, do you want to be alone? And she's like, "Girl, just hug me. Like, just hug me. Just comfort me." And I was like, the first time I hugged somebody, and I remember like I just broke. I'm about to cry right now too. But yeah, sorry. That was the first time that I had really hugged somebody, and it was the first time I felt true friendship because she just really wanted me and my presence, and she didn't even need anything from me. She just really wanted a friend, and I was able to give that to her. So enough with the emotional stuff. All right. So yes, I had a friend while I was in there. My Biff, thank you. You changed my life. You really showed me what type of person that I could be. So you'll forever have a place in my heart, whether I talk to you today or I don't talk to you again for another 10 years. I love you. The hardest part about being in jail, being locked up, is being away from family. Like, I think the entire 5 years I talked to my mom because she kept money on the books. She kept the money on the phone card. So thank you, Mom. Like, I can't express how much you mean to me, how much you did for me. Like, I talked to her probably once a week for 5 years. Like, I think I talked to her more while I was in there than I do now. And she lived like 5 minutes away. I'm going to do better. So I talked to my mom almost every day. She came to visit me all the time. My daughter lived in another state. So I think I seen her that one time in the 5 years. And when I got out, like, she was just so big. She was 5, but I guess I could do a whole nother hour just on like what it was like in prison, because I didn't even talk about my other girlfriend. So I did get one more girlfriend. Like, okay, I did get another girlfriend, and this one actually did like me. I actually really cared about her. And then she got out, and then we still talk sometimes, but not really. And really, I didn't even want a girlfriend. I think I just wanted a connection. And I thought that having a girlfriend would give me that connection. But really, once I found like real friendship, I wasn't craving a girlfriend like that. But I never got in trouble. I didn't even tell you guys about the juicy stuff that the guards being intimate with the inmates. Maybe another time. Maybe I'll do confessions of inappropriate behavior. But then I got out of prison when I was 24 years old, and I thought I was going to be old and wrinkly and my life was going to be over. But to be honest, I didn't miss out on much. I thought when I got out at 24 that everyone would have a career and have their houses and have their families, and I was just going to have to start from scratch, which I did have to start from scratch. I was on the bus for the first like 2 years, and like the city bus is rough. So I did have to start from scratch. I was living with my parents. I had $200 to my name. So it was hard, but I wasn't as far behind as I thought I should say. But I will tell you guys about a person I met. So when I got out, I started going to Hope for Prisoners with John Ponder and on the bus, and I was on my way to Hope for Prisoners, which is basically a program for people who are getting out of prison, and they help them find a job, they help them get clothes, they help them with communication skills, they just help them throughout the process. Because when you get out of prison, it's hard. It's fucking hard. And they don't talk about this enough, because within 48 hours of getting out, you have to register as a felon. Now, how are you going to get there? How are you going to register as a felon? It's rough. You need to get an ID, because everywhere you go, you need an ID. But how are you going to get to the DMV? How are you going to provide paperwork? Like, where are you going to get your paperwork from? You get out with literally nothing. So I'm like, Mom, we have 48 hours to register as a felon, or I'm going back to jail. Like, it's do or die. Do it right now. So Hope for Prisoners, I was going there on the bus, and I remember I had seen this dude on the bus, and he was very freaking cute. And I was like, okay, I promised myself I wouldn't get in a relationship the first year of getting out, because I'm vulnerable, right? I hadn't seen a man in years. I don't know about relationships. I don't even know about myself or who I am or what I'm going to do. So I said, I'm not going to get in a relationship the first year. But then I seen a man, like a real man, like not an officer man, but like a tall, dark, and handsome man on the bus. And I was like, oh my gosh, let me not even interact with him. So we're on the bus. We get off on the same stop, but I walk to the crosswalk. He cuts across the street, and lo and behold, we end up at the same place. And I'm like, hey, you cheated. You like, you broke the law when you jaywalked, and you should know better, because you just got out of prison. We both just got out of prison. We're going to Hope for Prisoners. And he was like, yeah, I'm sorry. He was like, wow, I can't believe you're going here. You're so beautiful. And I was like, and so, we talked a little bit. We got back on the bus, and we were going in the same direction. So we got on the same bus. He sat next to me. I didn't get his number that time, but we went back to Hope for Prisoners like 3 days later. We ended up on the same bus. And so he sat next to me again. And after that happened about twice, we exchanged numbers, and, we would see each other at the bus all the time. And on one of the times on the bus, he was like, I need to tell you what I did. He said, you're going to find out anyway. So I need to tell you why I went to prison, because I want to start this off with honesty. And I said, okay, let me know. And I don't ask people their crimes, and that's something I also didn't talk about. I learned to not ask about people's crimes because I don't want to know. Sometimes I just don't want to know because it makes me look at people so much differently, and I'm just trying to figure people out for who they are. Because people like said, "Hey, what did you do?" And I'm like, "Hey, I'm here for robbery," and they're like, "Ooh, we don't talk to robbers." And I'm like, "But you don't even fucking know me." So I try not to judge people by their crimes unless it's heinous, those type of crimes that are unforgivable. Other than that, I try not to judge. But anyway, so he was like, "I need to tell you what I did." I said, "Sure, let me know what you did. It's not a big deal." And he said he would meet a woman, he would get to know her, they would hang out, and then he would stalk her. He would stalk her and then follow her home, and then he would like stalk her house, and he would get to know her schedule. He would see what time she left every morning, what time she came home, what time her parents left every day. He would stalk everybody in the family, see where they worked, follow them to work. And he would stalk them for about a month or two. And then he would break into their house, and then he would hog tie them up one by one because, again, he knew their schedule. He knew when they would come home. He would hog tie them up one by one, and then he would torture them and assault them and burn them. He would put keys on the stove and burn them until they told him like the combination to the safe, until they gave him the money, yada yada yada. And he was like, sometimes he would just keep them tied up for days. But he wanted me to know that he was rehabilitated. That he was a different man. He was a changed man, and he doesn't do that anymore. So he wanted to come to my house. Yes, he wanted to come to my house, like get to know me a little bit better. And he said this while we were on the bus, and then I started to think about it. Every time I got on the bus to go to Hope for Prisoners, he was there. And it could be coincidence because we had to be there at a certain time. So we just could end up there. Or was he like paying attention to when I got on that bus and when I got off? And he was supposed to get off the bus before me, but sometimes he said he had places to go and he would stay on the bus until I got off. And so like then I started thinking, like, has he been stalking me? And so we're sitting on the bus together, and he's asking me if he can come to my house, and I'm running out of time. So I won't tell you guys what happened or what I did. So maybe I'll tell you guys on the next episode. So that's today's confessions. So although I didn't confess too much juicy stuff today, this was Confessions of an Antisocial. Now you guys know a little bit more about me. So I'm Rozia Bell. I hope you guys stay antisocial, but not too much. Thank you.